how are you looking?
All right, everyone. I think it's enough time of doing Samrat's project for him. Commander.
Yeah. So,
When to run cells. That's all.
okay, y'all. Okay. So does everyone have their notebook? Does everyone is no one having any technical issues?
If you're having any technical issues, put your hand up. All right, no hands. Cool.
Oh, nice. Okay, no technical issues. All right, so the data set that we're going to be messing with is basically a data set that I got off of Wikipedia. It's basically a data set on chips, like actual computer chips from certain plants in different countries and all that sort of stuff. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cleaning it up a bit because if you can scroll down a little bit, I'm not sure if you have all the no, not that far, just to where it shows some of the formatting of the actual data set.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I think there. So see, as you can see that this is sort of how the data set comes out after you go to the markup page on if you go to wiki markup, the data comes out sort of like this. And so there's some parts here that we don't want or that we don't need, so some of these characters I don't know what you call these straight up bars over here with a little minus sign, but basically we're just trying to remove some extraneous characters to get this in a cleaner form. So what we're gonna do is first we need to import the data, of course. So do the import data. Phil.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I can take this part for a sec. Everyone just run that top cell. Then you want to click on this folder icon here. If you see this file, big thing files with all of that crap in it, and you see listing complaints.csv, then you should be good. If so, then run that second cell. If you can't see that after running the first cell, then please put your hand up so I can help you diagnose your issues. That sounds weird. Just diagnose your issues with the notebook, not in general, not there. So am I diagnosing issues all the time anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, in general, if you guys are having any trouble getting that data, put your hand up now. Otherwise, we'll move on in 3 seconds or so. Yeah, what's up?
It says there's an error in destination path. All
right. Well, did you run it twice? Is this the only time? Why didn't I see that happen? Let me see. All right. Anyone else? Nope. All right. Cool.
That's good.
Move on. Run that second cell. And we will move on to import data, I guess, right?
Yep. That's what we're doing. Importing the data, and I think it's best if we actually do head 20. So inside of head, you can put in 20, because we're actually going to notice a pattern here when we're going to sort of use this pattern for
Evander?
Yeah.
You never sent me this chipplants.csv file.
Oh my goodness. My bad. Okay, hold up. This is going to be fixed immediately.
Right, that's going to make it. No, don't worry, you're good.
Yeah.
Just send it to me on Discord. I'll put it on the GitHub repo. Everyone just rerun second cells and you're good.
Okay, so we'll be sent on
Discord.
Discord.
Just turn it off and turn it back on again.
I'll do my best, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chip plants just sent on Discord.
To me or to me? Cool.
To you, or should I just put it on the? Should I just put it in the?
Send it to me. I'd rather not deal with having people try to download things off Discord because half the time it doesn't work.
Okay. Well, I just sent it to you.
Yeah, cool. I'll just throw it on the GitHub right quick. Add file. Upload files. This. Changes. Perfect. Lovely. And then if I just throw. Right. All right, cool. So just if you guys don't have the line, which you probably won't, there should be just at this line. It's exclamation mark, whatever. If not, you can just recopy the notebook. It's the last thing in that first cell. But in any case, make sure you do that and rerun those first 2 cells. Put your hands up, anybody, if you're having problems. Yeah, we'll give you like 10 seconds. Okay, fine, I'll give you as much time as it takes to type. Or actually just, I don't know. Let me know when you're ready, in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but
Wait, what's up?
it's not.
Oh, probably gonna have to delete it.
I just refresh the page and then it's okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're just gonna have to delete the whole files and try again. Shouldn't honestly do that.
Make copies.
What?
Did all of them make its copy?
They should have. I'm running this on my own, so.
Should we import the data once we did that?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Just make sure you made a copy of the file, not like.
Yeah, just make sure you have it in your thing and you make sure you made a copy of the notebook originally, you didn't like use like the default one here. Other than that, yeah. If you're running into any technical difficulties that are a little too hard to solve, then just follow along with the notebook here. It will exist obviously afterwards, so you guys can play around with it as need be, but yeah.
All right. Are we good now, or are we still working on it?
Is everyone good or in a state where they feel like we can continue?
It's not good.
Okay, you're never good, other than Soho.
Is import data supposed to actually work now? It's not.
It should, ideally,
Does it work for you?
yeah.
Oh, you wait. Yeah. So let's see.
Oh, the dot. Okay.
How many file paths?
Okay,
Sorry, I
okay.
tried to look through every file path and throw in the dots and all that stuff. If it's not there, just throw one there. It's a single character.
I didn't work it now.
What the heck did I just do? Why are these touchscreen? God,
Phil, it's touchscreen everywhere. Why are
it's
you?
like my math professor, I swear, it's always that needed as this.
Oh, you always get on math professor. So.
Shut up. Just because I'm a math major does not mean you get to say that, despite the fact that you're right. Great, now it's gonna just chill for a sec. Give it a bit.
If folks online are having trouble just typing to chat, we can't really see you physically. No, I'm not.
Just
We'll just like you here.
no, it's fine.
Just make sure, because I don't want to be like this.
No, you good, you good. Don't worry. I understand. But now you good. Also, I realize now that turning off the AV system may actually not be good for hearing me, so this will be fun. Right back on. It's on.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so add the dot in there. Is everyone ready to move on? I'll take that as a yes. Cool. All right, Commander. take it.
All right. Awesome. All right. Sorry about that slowdown, but like, let's just keep going.
It's not-
So you may actually. Are we good? Is everything good, or do we still have some issues?
Commander,
Yes. Are we good, or do we still have some issues?
this is annoying, man. Why does nothing ever work?
Well, it was working.
It was.
Are we moving forward now, or?
Turn off the lights, maybe we'll see better.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I should have done that anyway. There you are.
Okay.
Evander, can you say something?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, well that's not working.
Can you hear me?
Turn the volume to 100%.
You know, I can technically run it off my laptop speaker. That means I can't. Oh, wait, you have to hear the, oh, wait, no, I think I would hear it anyways.
Evander?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, there we are. Thank you, Christ. All right, cool. Go, take it away.
Awesome. Okay. Now that we've like inputted the data, we are gonna actually like finish up on a function that's gonna actually remove some of the extraneous characters that we have, or the extraneous rows. So actually, if we go back up and go to head, we can do head 20, and we can see what kind of rows we're gonna be removing. We're gonna, yes, you can do head 20 or head 10. 20 is good. Not 30 might be a little bit too much. Let's just do 20.
I can't see. I'm blind.
Yeah. So you see these like row 19. Row 9, you see that extraneous row that just has like some random character there. So we're going to be removing those essentially, and we're going to be doing that by basically finishing up on a function. So the function is just down below. It's going to be called remove separators. And so where you see input column and string to remove, you're gonna like look at your data frame and you're gonna look at the column that pertains to like, well, this column that you want to strip from, the column that you want to remove the rows from in particular. So if you scroll up, or to your output, you'll see that those extraneous rows, those extraneous characters are in the line column. If you go up to see the column name, you'll see line. So where it says input column, you want to put line in there.
Just in every instance, right?
Yep. And likewise for the characters that you want to remove the separators, you want to put in actually where it says string to remove, we're going to put in the separator. So that's going to be that little vertical bar and the minus sign, or the, I don't know what you call it, M dash or whatever. But where it says string to remove,
Okay.
yes. Where it says string to remove, we replace that with the separator. Yes, exactly. Now we're going to run that cell.
All right. Everybody like following along, right? Cool. Take that, yes.
Awesome. So, and the cell just below where it says call function here and set to a variable. This is where we're going to basically, like, let's say create a variable name. It can be whatever variable name you want. I use stripped chips, or stripped underscore chips is what I use, but you can use whatever variable name that you want to just make it your own. And then you do remove, like equals, remove separators, and then you put in chips, which is your data set, or your data frame specifically. Okay. And then we just want to output that with like a strip chips.head.
You want to do 20 again, or just?
Yeah, sure. I think 20 shows like the significant difference that we no longer have those extraneous rows.
All right, jump on running.
Let's run that. Nice. So you can see there, row 9 is no longer there. Neither is row 19. Those have been, well, basically stripped out. Okay. And those are the ones that we saw that had the separator. So we want that. Now going forward, what we're gonna be doing next is oops, I see I did have a little bit of spelling error there where it says replace. Yeah, that was yeah, so that's just a hyperlink. So you guys actually like click on the little links there to see like the documentation for your functions.
Commander?
Yes.
I just want to check in. So
Yes.
did everyone get like the remove separators function?
Yeah.
Cool.
No one's too shy, right? Okay, cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Now let's still look at this at our output here. Let's just we still need to see some things in our output. So we do have some other extraneous characters here. Like we have some of these I guess these little, I'm not sure if you call it these little like the angle brackets, and then we have some of these curly brackets, and some more of these vertical lines over there that we don't really need. They're not pertinent to like any sort of output that we want. So we want to remove those too. And so that's what our second function is going to be about. Now scrolling back down. Scrolling back down.
Sorry, I was talking.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. But over here, make sure to also pay attention to like the format of like the documentation of each function. This is generally the format that I learned. So I'm just trying to like, you know, help you guys out with some basic format to work with. So you see over here, what's the purpose of the function? Is to remove unwanted characters, and those are the particular unwanted characters that we want to remove. These square brackets and also that little vertical line. And we also, okay, that's after we've already, let's say, we'll remove the rows that have the separator. And that's actually integrated into this function as well. So like in case you, I mean, like, so if we have like, basically if we have like our original data set, once we like use it as input for this function, it's going to run the previous function, remove separators, and then it's going to also run the processes that remove the other characters that we don't want in there. So for that, we can see where it says your code here, we're going to go to remove char, and we're going to put in the characters that we want to remove, which are shown that are like sort of described in the description up there, where it says remove unwanted characters.
Do you want to like in commas, or just like each one's a separate string?
Yeah, it's comma separated, so it's going to be comma separated characters to remove.
String, or each one is like a different string?
Excuse me?
They all go in the same string, or is each one a different string?
Each one's a different string.
All right, cool. Thank you. Cool. So it's all of these, right?
Yep. So we're gonna remove those, like, yeah, those strings. So, oh, not, I just put I put those particular, like, the square brackets in parentheses, but you don't need the parentheses. The parentheses are not included.
Oh, okay.
So just the vertical line. What do you even call that vertical line? Does it have a
Oh,
specific
the
name?
pipe character.
A what?
Pipe,
I didn't even get that, but it's what.
like plumbing, pipe,
Or Mario.
or like we pipe, you know?
Okay.
This is recorded.
I don't really care. Put a bleep over it, why not?
Okay. So we don't have any extraneous commas there, so you can remove that sorry, not, yeah, the one of the, like, you have your second character there, that second one is that we don't need that.
All right.
Yeah, it's just the square, like the square brackets and that vertical line there. And yeah, I think that should be it. And then we also want to put in our input columns, the column that we're filtering, which is the line column again.
Oh my god, I can't type. So you can tell them.
Yeah, and so these not the last few lines, but like I guess you could say, like, where it says replace string and, well, what's this string str replace? This is basically gonna, like, filter out our regex sort of value, regex characters, so these angle brackets and everything. So just make note of this function. You can see the documentation above as well. There should be the hyperlink. You can just see what else, how the function runs, and what else you can do with it. So yeah, so let's run this cell, get this function running.
Out of curiosity, did you explain just a quick little bit about what regex actually is?
Yeah, so I don't know, Phil, do you want to take that over?
Alrighty, great. So I can go really deep into regexes, but in general, basically what it's looking for is you put in regex, or regex is basically like a pattern. And so what the computer does is it'll look at the pattern and it'll go, okay, based on that, I want to match to a string that has, like, in this case, it'll be like it has one of these characters in it, and it'll, you know, start cutting those characters out. So that's what it does here, where you can see replace. So it's saying regex equals true. That means, you know, the first input strings are regex. You're then telling it, hey, you know, something that, you know, has any of these sorts of characters, right? If you find any of these characters in your string, replace it with the empty string, which means just, you know, delete it, essentially. And so you're doing that on, you're doing that twice. So that's essentially it for regex. It's just pattern matching, more or less.
Is it like just applicable with replace?
Oh, no. So regexes are actually this is why I said I could get really deep into them. They're actually a much bigger topic in computer science. That's like beyond just the scope of even one language. But in general, like it's applicable with replace, it's applicable with a bunch of other functions in Python that are string functions. As I always say, read the documentation, gives you better info than I do. But in general, just know that regexes are basically a way of like pattern matching strings, so you can identify what's in them and start, you know, playing with them.
You can take C to C330 and learn about them.
Yep. Very in detail.
Awesome. Thanks for that explanation, Phil. So now moving forward to, let me see. Oh, you printed it. Okay, you already printed it out over there, I see.
Oh, did you not want me to? Or?
Well, it's fine. We can just move on to like the next cell where it says call function. So we're gonna like just basically like set it to a variable.
What do you want to call it?
You can do clean chips.
All right.
Yeah. Clean
Okay.
chips equals clean underscore cells. Then put in underscore cells. And put in the chip.
Strip chips are.
Oh no, you can just put in the basic chips because they're already stripped. Like the function strips the chips because it calls strip chips. Or it calls remove separators. The function that we just made calls remove separators as well.
It mutates in place. Okay, sure. Cool.
Yeah. And then we can do clean chips, you know, head 20, just to see that, you know, we've removed those extraneous characters and regex patterns.
And I really don't do that there. As you can see, there we are.
Yeah, so you can do, I mean, if you mind, you can just like do maybe 10 or 20 again.
I'll put 20.
And there we go. You can see that it's cleaned up. Now, this is like, I guess, the data frame or the data frame form of like what we actually got from the Wikipedia page, but we can actually sort of recreate the date, like the format that was shown on the Wikipedia page. So actually you can, I don't know if anyone's actually gone to the Wikipedia page where I got the data from, but you can actually go to, if you want, the top where it says the data set, you can click on the link for Wikipedia and you can look. So actually, yeah, Phil, can you do that?
Sure.
Just so we can see how the original data format was like. So where it says Wikipedia.
Okay, cool, gotcha.
So you can see where there's company, plant name, location, plant cost in US, billions, started. So you can just sort of like scroll through it and see how like this is the format of the actual original data set. You can scroll to the right and just, show all the columns that are there. And so we want to make note of the columns and actually like within the notebook, I made sure to enumerate them just so you guys wouldn't have to like look back at this Wikipedia page, but just to like, let you see how it originally looked like. So going back to the notebook.
1 second, just I want to check it. So up until this point, has everyone got the functions right? Oh, good. You can also give me a thumbs down. That is also an option. Okay. Go on.
We just had a problem with the initial ones, but it's fine, we'll go through it at the end.
Are you sure? I mean,
I can
you
help
can be
you.
bug on the spot, brother.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Sure, whatever works for you, man.
Thank you.
All right, no worries.
Okay, back to you, Vander.
Yeah, okay, cool.
All right. Assign. Okay. So now you see the enumeration of the columns. There's 9 columns there. There's company, plant name, plant location, plant cost of US billions, started production, water size, process technology, production capacity, technology products. So that's the list, right? So now we're gonna make a function that's basically gonna give us a column of those names that's gonna be appended onto the original data frame. And we're going to use this for the purpose of reconstructing the look of the original data set on Wikipedia. So over there where you see column names, you're basically going to put in those enumerated column names that are above. Oh, big brain move, big brain. All right.
Don't do what I do because Markdown's a pain, but I can bother to sit and type it all
Yeah, I
out.
just may want to remove all those numbers too, right?
Wait, no, it's not the S code, darn it.
You're over engineering.
Well, I'm used to being able to have multiple cursors, okay? But, not everything's nice. Yeah, if you hit Alt, yeah, fun story, by the way, for those of you who use VS Code. If you hit Alt and click somewhere, it gives you a second cursor. So if you have to edit like multiple things on the same line, you hit Alt, click on each one of the lines, and then just go for it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, how you doing with this?
Yeah, make sure you put those commas in there too.
Which, the numbers or?
In between each
Oh, yeah, no.
string, yeah.
Okay, let's see. No, I can't. Darn it. This is why I prefer VS Code. Usually would be faster from this one. So
I think that's the second time you said that. Well, no, 5th time you said that.
it's a common philism, don't worry. So you're still not used to it. Calm down.
I'm very used to it. Don't even know.
Fair enough.
Awesome, okay.
All right, well, then.
It looks like we're good. Good to run the cell now. All right. And now we're going to do this sort of the same process that we've done before. So we can just call the function really.
All right, sure. So what's called again? Put it on chips.
Yep.
Oh, shoot. Oh, there we are. Yeah.
There you go. And you see there's the names associated with every like you see like China, plant location, then you have the plant name, you have company name and the company, all that information that was from the columns that we originally saw on the Wikipedia page. But now we actually want to get into the actual format of what we saw on the Wikipedia page, where we had like the names up top as columns. That's why we named it columns, because that column is going to be there's going to be multiple columns. So we're going to have like a separate column for company, plant name, and so on. And so to do that, we're going to be using the function pivot. So that's why I included a hyperlink for a pivot, where I'll basically tell you over here. So you can just call the function again, but then we're going to do dot pivot.
All right. So just.
So we're going to do assign column names.
Yep, got
Yeah.
it. Cool. So we need to provide
dot pivot, and now we're going to provide some arguments. So okay, so parentheses. Now we're going to put in the index. What's going to be our index? It's going to be our ID.
All right, cool. Do I just type in ID here?
So you do index
All right,
equals ID.
Cool, that's okay.
Then we're going to be doing columns equals columns.
Is it the list columns or?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a string columns, since we actually have a column called columns. Yeah.
Good. Just wanted to.
Yeah, and then we have our values is gonna be line. Now we can run that cell. So yeah, so you can actually open up the Wikipedia page to see how it compares to the original formatting that's on the Wikipedia page. And you'll see it's actually like it's similar.
Well, it's out of order, but that's just sets for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
And so, okay, we got a person to admit here. Okay. All right. So with this, I guess this data format, we actually may want to like actually keep it. And so that's what our next function is for. Our next function, we're basically just gonna like do a toCSV. Well, it basically automatically does what we just did with the pivot by also just like getting the using the assign column names function. It runs that and it pivots them just as we did separately in different cells. We're just gonna combine it all into one function. And so we already have like ID columns and line in there. So we just want to replace the file path and the file name. The file name is going to be whatever you want. I guess you're going to have like a relative path or whatever.
And then I should probably run the code. Just chips down, right?
Yep.
Got it. Cool.
Let's see what we got.
Guys, there should be something.
Here it is.
File name.csv, whether you called it like, My Little Pony or Clean Data or whatever, it's going to be there. So if it's not there, there's a problem. So let me know. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'll over here for 1 more second. Yeah, what's up?
Well, I don't really get what you did in the last part where it was like chips located index equals ID.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'll explain. So basically, when it says pivot, what we're trying to do is we're basically we're realigning the data frame so that it matches the way that we want it to be. So when we say index equals ID, if you remember from last time, I think we talked about pandas data frames, or pandas things in general have an index, which denotes, what order the column, what like the order, like the number to assign to the columns. And so what we want is we want each of the rows, And so we want that each of the rows with the same ID, or everything with the same ID is all going to be in one row. So when we say index equals ID, that means all of these entries with 0 will get pushed into one row, right? Okay. Then when it says columns, when we're pivoting, it needs the names of like the new columns that we want. And so what we did in this above function is when we made this column list, we then threw it here, right? What it did is it just repeated every single line. It repeated like every set of like how many columns there are. It just repeated that list over and over in that column. So then it'll go like, okay, anything with the same anything with the same entry and column. So all of the things with company, right, will get their own column. All the things with plant name, their own column, so on and so forth. And then when it says values is a line, that means, okay, what are the values are being input to the data frame? And those values come from here. So it basically is just a giant game of association where it takes the ID, throws all of those into one row, then grabs each column and like makes it its own column. and then goes, okay, where do the values come from? They come from, the line column over here. Does that make sense?
What is ID over there? Is ID like the row number or something like
Yeah, ID is the row number. It's technically the index, but index and row number are almost the same in Pandas. If you do any higher work with SQL, they're not the same, so, remember that when you get there. But in general, for the purposes of us, ID and row number are just basically the same thing right now. Yeah. Anything else? It was up.
You said if it takes ID and puts it into its own row, is it row or column?
It's row. So basically it looks under this, right? So we have multiple different things with the same ID, right? And you see how each of those have a different column, right? So all of these are the entries under like the same like row. So like they're the same like piece of data basically. And these columns are just different attributes. So row 0 should be all about, the company of United Microelectronics that has a plant name called the Fab 8N in China with all of these things, right? And so what it does is it takes the index and it says, okay, anything that has that like index that has ID 0, all of those entries will get put into the same row. I don't know what each of the entries columns should do, but we'll figure that out when we look at the columns thing. But what it does is at least go, okay, anything with ID 0, that's its own row. Anything with ID 1, that's its own row, and so on and so on. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Anybody else? Nope. Alrighty then. Evander, take it away, my guy.
Yeah, so we're just gonna get to like the next function, which is creating a function to output our CSV file. So we already did that, right? Yeah, so we already did that. Yeah. So this next function that we're going to work on, where it says, okay, checking for missing data. So this is a bit of a foretaste of like our next notebook that we're going to be doing, I guess next week as well. But anyways, so this function in particular. Hello? Is everything good?
Have a moment to check in.
Okay.
Is everyone good at this point? Not?
I created a file for you. You do it for me.
Did you?
Dot slash.
Yeah. If you don't have a dot slash, paths are not. Hey, Evander, for the future, can we please use pathlib for all paths?
Can you say that again?
Just for the future, can we make all paths like pathlib objects instead of just strings? Because strings suck.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
Sounds
true.
good.
That's cool. Note for the future. Here we go.
All right. So this function that we have here is concat CSV. So I just want to make sure like we get to be like a little bit more interactive now. So with this function, you can look at the code for yourself also and just see like, okay, what is it trying to do here? But basically what we're doing is we're going through a file path. So it's going to be big thing files is the file that we're actually like going to be going into. And we're going to look for all files that end with .csv. And we're basically going to be concatenating them. We're basically like combining them all to become one data frame. And so this is, so we want to like put that in a description. So it says description here.
Just to be quick thing, for those who are not familiar with how blob works. Obviously this is string addition because the path is going to be a string. The star, specifically in CS, that's what's referred to as a wildcard pattern. When it says wildcard, that means, okay, any file that has this, like that matches this sort of pattern. So in this case, it's any file that ends in .csv, that's going to be found. So what this blob thing is going to do, it'll look through the directory that we pointed to, find all of the .csv files, and it'll do whatever the heck we need to with them. So that's the whole idea with the star path. It's not multiplication. Render, take it
All
away.
right. Sounds good. Yeah. So
You have a question?
where it says description here.
Render,
Yeah. Can you hear?
It's all that have its path plus .csv, or it's not just that end in CSV, right?
Well, yeah, so when I say path plus .csv, essentially what it does is it'll take the path, right? And it'll say, okay, so we give it a directory. So what we'll be doing is we'll be giving, you can see in the next cell, we'll be giving it big thing files. And so it's gonna, I need to finish this real quick.
So it's all in that directory.
Yeah, it'll look through all of that directory, and anything with the .csv extension in that directory will be matched.
Awesome.
Did you have a question?
I love
All right, cool. Right, Vander, back at it.
Yeah. Great. So we can see, okay, so just like in our where it says description here, we sort of want to get the general description of what the function's doing. So basically, you insert a path. So it says, if you mind putting your cursor up where it says description
Oh,
here, because
right.
we're gonna be like, we're gonna be editing where it says description here.
Yep.
Description, no, it's in like the
Oh,
general
no.
description of the function. They're gonna replace description here. We're gonna replace that.
You wanna
Yeah,
go-
replace those little minus signs or whatever is there too. General description of the function, which is again to go through, like you import, you input a file path, and it goes through that directory and grabs. I guess you could say just grabs files that end with a certain certain pattern. Or finds all the CSVs in particular. I guess, yeah, finds all the CSVs, and then it concatenates them into one data frame.
Also, in general, because I actually do kind of want to remark on this, so Python feels kind of useless. You'll find that Python, so for any of you, I think we said that like 131 is kind of like a thing that you all should know before getting in here. So I would assume most of you have taken 131 and have familiar with Java. If you remember, Java has a whole set of rules for how like block comments need to go and all of that stuff, so that the bloody Java doc works out. Python kind of does and doesn't. There's a style guide for the language, obviously, but that the interpreters that are used to like make those like documentation programs, they accept like multiple different comment styles. You can see that if you look it up. Honestly, there's like one that's like Google style, which I think this one is. There's another that I think is called like Sphinx style, which is the one I use. So if you're ever reading through like a Python file and you feel like, oh, these comments like don't look like the ones that Phil and Summer and Andrew showed me, well, that's just because they choose to type things differently. In general, all of the types are valid, but some like it honestly depends on the company. So like if you go to a certain company, they'll make you do this sort of style and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Yeah, and so going into the, I guess you could also explain like what's going on in the for loop, or I could as well. So just going into the for loop, we see that like we have all files, or like for every file, every particular file name in all files, we're gonna do this. We're gonna be setting each individual file to its own df, and then we're gonna be appending it to this array that we created above outside the for loop. And then eventually the array is going to have all of the data frames in there. And then outside of the for loop, we're going to be using the concat function, in which we basically put in the array as the first argument. And that's going to basically, it's going to concatenate all of our DFs and everything. So yeah, then it's going to return the frame. All right. So we're gonna run that. We're gonna, let's say, put in our file, so where it says call function, then set to a variable. I use concatdf. You can use it whatever you want. And then yes, concat underscore or concat underscore CSV.
Trying to hit tab.
Yeah, and put your path, and then do a dot head. We're gonna do concat.csv.head.
Sorry to throw you under the bus, but don't call it
Okay.
that. I'm pretty sure it's a keyword in Python, and if not, in general, just don't do it. It's kind
All
of-
right, no problem, no problem. Yeah, so we can just do a df.head.
Yep. For those who don't know, path I think is a reserved keyword for the pathlet module, which brings up like path objects, which makes paths easier to deal with. But just in general, don't call things path, call it path.
Okay, well. I see.
Okay,
Your file.
so this is
Evander, hang on. Yeah, what's up?
I still can't create a file, but.
Oh, dude, I can help you quickly.
I just like, could you very quickly go over what PD though?
Right. So basically, what we've done in this for loop is we've looked through all of the things that end in .csv of that folder that we pointed to, right? And we have a list of all of them, right? So what we're doing here is we're grabbing that file. We have a list of all their files, or the file paths. Forgive me. So we're grabbing the file path, and then in pd.readcsv, we're reading it into a database, right? And then we're appending that onto some sort of list. So we're basically just have a list of data frames right here. What pd.concat does is it takes all of those data frames and it basically stacks them on top of each other, so they're all one big data frame now. If you notice, there's like ignore index equals true. That means like don't try to reindex and play all funny things with that game, because those get to be paid. And axis equals 0, that just means like which side. So either you can stack them or you can like smush them left to right and so on and so forth. So the way that we're doing it, we're just stacking them on top of each other.
Top to bottom.
Yeah. What's up?
Does it just take all the names of the columns and add them all the way to the end, and then not put in values for, like if the data frames are different, they don't have like the same categories, columns, how does it decide?
That's in Panda's documentation. I will say there's actually multiple different ways to do that, which you can specify. I think in general, it just throws like null values in there. But it's something you should read the documentation for to fill in specifics. So I'm gonna.
Your point.
Please show the thing about create the file again.
Yeah, sure. I got you. So can you just plug it in and go into your.
I mean,
You just need to hit shift enter, my guy.
how much you have?
Are we good?
I mean, I'll give it a minute before we continue.
I'm sorry, I can't tell you.
Anyone else having troubles
It should be.
or issues or headaches? Yes.
I actually did have trouble earlier, but I was able, like, it wasn't collecting any of the CSV files, but then I managed to fix it by adding a dot.
Yeah.
Is that normal or like?
Yeah, you need to, wait, where did you add the dot?
Go to cell 19.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, yeah. Missing a couple dots, sorry, I had to import this from local to, collab, so some of the bot dots.
Showing up, why?
What?
Still not showing up. Sometimes it's just.
Alright,
I mean, you're.
alright, cool, that was the worst.
Okay, you can continue, Commander.
Are we good?
One last quick swat of the room. Good or no?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, let's continue.
Okay. Also, we just do want to go up to like the concat CSV function and make sure we put in what our arguments are. So our argument is, well, currently like where it says arguments. So I made sure just to like leave those kind of general so that you can then put in, so it can be, just make it more interactive. So for arguments, it's going to be like path, or we're going to change it to P, I guess. But yeah, so, and say what sort of data type it is. So it says arguments.
Sorry?
Yeah, so where it says arguments, you just put in like P. You can say that it's a string, data type string.
I'm actually just not.
Yeah, you can go, yeah, path is what it's supposed to be. You can put it, it's a string.
I'm not entirely sure about, but also in Python, strings are just str because the type object itself is called str. So remember that you can write string. It doesn't.
Yeah. And then we're outputting frame. Well, that's our return variable is frame, which is a data frame. And it's like its contents are that of line from the original data frame. So it's basically all like its contents are, I guess you could say, what's a good way to put it? Oh, sorry, not line. What am I thinking about? Line? No, it's not line. Its contents are basically the counts of actually complaints. Basically, counts of complaints is basically for like the count of complaints for asbestos, dust, gases, mold, and sewage. So yeah, that's fine enough. That works. That works too. Cool. Anyways, yeah. So scrolling down, we see we have over here. So we can just sort of like look through the data set of what it is. We can actually particularly just look at its columns.
Right. Yeah.
Let's look at its columns over there. So yeah, those are all its columns. So you can just see what the data set contains. It's just a count of the complaints made in a certain year for a certain kind of complaint type, be asbestos, dust, all that sort of stuff.
It is filling with null values. Don't say it.
That's because it, like, certain things don't.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the column or there's no entry there. Then it's just a null.
Yeah. So this is a bad data frame on purpose. It's not good data on purpose. So I guess it's just missing data. We have this missing data just to show something. So we're going to go down. Now we're going to make a function called missing data. And so the purpose of this function is basically to give us the percentage of the missing data within each column. Yeah, and we're going to be inputting in a data frame, some sort of data frame, I guess frame, which is a data frame. And our output is going to be missing value DF, which is just another data frame which contains the column names and percent missing, the percent of data missing from each column. Nice. Okay, so now we're going to do missing data. So where it says apply missing data DF, missing data DF to the concatenated data frame.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So let's, I'll do missing data, and then inside of that, put in the concatenated DF. So, so it turns, Yeah, so you can see there's a bunch of missing data here. This data frame, all the data in it, it's basically kind of useless. We can't really use it to extrapolate anything because it's like you have over 50% of the data missing. That's generally considered a bad mark, like where you want to throw something away. We're gonna get deeper into like our general metrics for when we want to remove certain columns or when we want to start imputing later next week. But all this sort of data you can see within each variable is basically like, except the categorical variables or like the name variables like the borough and UHFs and the date received, all of the other columns are over 60%. So they will be thrown out. It's a lot of data missing. But now we're gonna input in basically the processed version of this data set, which is air quality. It's going to be called air quality complaints. We're just going to already give it that name. We're going to import in the listing complaint CSV. And so let's, what we're going to do is apply.
Oh, I can't type.
So there we go. So now we see in this data frame, it's only two columns. The ones at the bottom, sewage O count and sewage L count, which is sewage odor count and sewage leak count. Those are the only columns that we may delete since they have like around 60% of their data missing. But the other columns we can still work with, since they only have like the highest missing one outside of those two is just like dust count, which has like around 9%. So that's data that like from dust count upward is like data that we would keep. And that concludes our lesson for today. We're going to get into like a little bit deeper on how we can process our missing data and what we're going to do with like data that has a certain percentage missing, like let's say 30% data, how we're going to treat that, how we're going to treat data that only has 2%, and so on. And we're going to just see various methods of imputing data into our data sets. But yeah, that's it for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed a little bit more of an interaction with the notebook today.
Thank you. I will say, okay, everyone, so two things. One, if you have any questions, I am going to stick around for like 10 minutes. So Samrat, hopefully. Yeah, and we'll be free to answer them. The second thing, we will be sending out a feedback form later. If you don't fill it out, this guy's kind of annoying about DMing people to fill it out, so just fill it out on your own accord, otherwise he's gonna DM you.
I will
But,
literally spam DM all.
I will say we literally use the feedback form to design later lectures and try to figure out what to do, so it's extraordinarily valuable you guys giving us some feedback. Other than that, thank you for coming, and we will see you next week in the big lecture hall.
I'll see you next week.
You'll see me in like a couple minutes. Yeah. Hi.